Hello everybody, my name is Michael, and in today's video what we're going to be doing is this right here. So if that looks exciting to you guys, please carry on and watch the video. Oh, and just one more thing before we go. Please consider like, commenting, and subscribing if you enjoyed the video. But now with all that out of the way, let's carry on with the video. Okay, so starting with our paint job of Craster here, all I've done is I've given him a zenithal highlight prime, which is starting off with a black and then spraying over top with a white so we can get those nice shadows in there. Then once we've done that, I'm going to start off with some charred brown. That's a nice deep dark brown, and I'm going to be using this for the base colour of his chair that he's nicely sitting on in that really cool pose. I really do like the pose that he's sitting on this chair. So it's just a matter of coming in, giving a good overall coat, being careful to avoid anywhere that there's cloth and his fur cloak are coming over. There's quite a few areas where it's doing that, so just a bit of spending a little bit of time and really getting into those little areas. Okay, so now we're going to be moving on to his skin, and we're going to start out with barbarian flesh. It's going to be a good base color to start off with before we start putting any highlights on. And it's going to give a good overall coverage, and since we've got that nice zenithal prime under there, we can see a little bit of where the shadows and stuff can go, as well as if we keep our layers nice and thin like I do here, you actually see a little bit of it come through in the final product once it's dry. But remember, just spend a little bit of time and really get those layers nice and smooth. Then once we've done that, what we're going to be doing now is moving on with some highlights. I'm going to be using kobold skin to do this, which is a nice lighter tone of flesh color that we're going to be using, and we're going to be focusing mainly on the higher points, or the parts that are going to naturally sort of hit the sun. So on this model, since it's got it nicely sculpted, we want to be getting in the tip of the nose, the eyebrows, the knuckles of the fingers, sort of just around the edge of his arm there that'd be catching the light. Just places like that as we want to be going over, spending a little bit of time and finding those places that would be in the sun and catch that little bit of light. Then once we have that complete, we're going to come in now with some leather brown. And what we're going to do with the leather brown is I'm going to be using this for a dry brush, and I'm going to be just dry brushing over his seat here, really getting the tops and giving that nice sort of highlight effect on this model. And you can see it's very blurry, so it's very hard to see what I'm doing here because my camera is out of focus. So trust me, it's just a matter of going on, really trying to catch those highlights areas. Now, it's not going to make too much of a difference since our charcoal brown is so dark, but it's going to give us a nice little bit of highlights and stuff in the end result. Then once we've dry brushed that chair a little bit, we're going to come in now with some flesh wash, and this of course is going to be going over everywhere we can see his skin. And the reason why I'm doing this lately is I quite like the effect of placing the wash after the highlights and that, just to blend them together a little bit. It sort of saves a lot of a hard blending step, because I'm trying to go for, like, nice and ease of use and trying to get a pretty decent effect pretty quickly. So I find doing the highlights, since we've got such different colors in our highlights, blending them together with a wash can really help and make it a little bit more subtle than the big swipe across with the paint. So it's just about trying to make it a little bit more subtle. Then once we have that wash complete, what we're going to be doing now is coming in with another wash, this time using agrx earthshade. And I'm going to be using this for, of course, the only other thing we've painted on the model, and that's the chair. So giving a nice overall color, and immediately you can see that that wash is going into those nice grooved areas of that part of the miniature, the nice detail and the wood grain of that chair. So it's going to really help out with that, and just be aware of it pooling too, since it can slightly slide down and really pull up into the bottom area. So it's just a matter of keeping a little bit of an eye on it as it's drying. Then once we have that completely dry, we're going to come in now with some castle grey. And for castle grey, I'm going to be using this for the main top slash overclothing that he's wearing. So pretty much the main part of clothing seat, but we're not going to be doing the his cloak that he's wearing or his pants. It's just the main sort of what do you call it, like tunic and stuff like that. His main shirt anyway is what we're aiming for, and being careful that we're not going over anywhere that we've already painted. So spend a little bit of time in those areas. Switch to a finer brush if you need to, but it's not too bad with this miniature. And since we're still in the base coating stages with the other parts, we can be a little bit messy when it comes down to the legs. Then once we've got that completely finished, we're going to come in now with some oak brown, and we're going to use the oak brown for his belt that he's wearing around his waist, of course. So this one here, you may need to switch to a finer brush. I've just gotten one that has a little bit better tip than the one I was using before, so I can really get in there and get a good coverage of that belt across his chest. So it's take a little bit of time, but remember, we're still doing that base coating step, so if you need to just touch up with that grey again, it's not too hard to at the moment. Then once we have that belt painted up, we're going to come in now with some dark sea grey. And this, of course, is a lighter grey from our castle grey we were using before. So we're going to be using this as a highlight layer. So getting the edges of those nice folds, and the part where his belly's sort of really sticking out, we want to be getting that nice big flat area that's going to be nicely in the sun. And up against his chest there as well, he's got a nice bit of folded clothing. So it's just a matter of coming in, picking those out, being sort of trying to be precise where you want it. It's not an exact science. We're sort of just going for a big, wide area so you can see that it's sort of naturally in the sun. You can see by me painting up here how we're sort of going about it. Then once we have those highlights complete, we're going to come in now with some khaki. And we're going to be using khaki for his trousers that he's wearing. So just the trousers, we're not worrying about the boots or anything like that. Just giving them a really good coat. And since there is a lot of little folds and creases in there, make sure that you really get that paint in between those areas. So just one little part to be aware of while you're doing that. And of course, don't be afraid to use thin layers to really take advantage of the zenithal highlight we've got here as well. So and really pay attention to those shadows for when we do the highlighting step. Now that we've done his trousers, it's time to move on to the boots. I'm going to come in with some leather brown for this. So nice and easy. It's just a matter of coming in, getting that leather brown on there. And he does sort of have like a lot of like fur tussle and like bits of leather that he's like wrapped around his boots and that. I'm not going to worry too much about keeping them individual. I want them all to be one color, and we can emphasize those a little bit later on with the highlighting step. Then once we have those complete, we're going to come in now with some matte black. And what we're going to be doing with that is we're going to be using this for the base color of his fur cloak that he's wearing here. Since he gets a lot of gifts and sort of items from the Night's Watch, it makes sense that maybe one time they gave him a Night's Watch cloak. So I'm going to be painting up in that sort of style. So the nice deep black and going full black for this for the base layer. Then once we've completed that, we're going to do some burnt umber now. And we're going to be doing it for just underneath the cloak here. Now, this is totally optional for you. You'll see in the next step here, I decided to change my mind and make it a different color. So it's up to you whether you want to go with the brown here. But I thought it was going to look a little too samey with all the khakis and browns that we have there anyway. So I switched it out for a different color. And here you go. You'll see me here coming now in with the color that I'm going to use, which is going to be a black gray, which is a lighter... or I should say a darker grey colour, more towards black, that I'm going to be using for underneath. Since I said it was going to be a Night's Watch cloak, I decided that, you know, Night's Watch cloak, they're always known for their black cloak, so I didn't want to change it around slightly by having it brown underneath that cloak, so that's why I went back with a different colour here. And I think it's going to look a little bit better and stand out against other colours that are very similar, like the browns and stuff we have on the trousers. Then once we have that complete, what we're going to do now is come in with some basalt grey. And our basalt grey here we're going to be using for dry brushing, and we're going to be using it to dry brush the tufts on the fur to try and give it that little bit of highlight colour, since basalt grey is also a little bit lighter grey than the black grey we had there as well. It's going to give us a little bit of highlighting, hopefully anyway, to try and give us some variation colour so it's not just straight black on that cloak. Then now with that cloak complete, we're going to come in now with some ivory. And what we're doing with the ivory was we're going to be painting up Craster's hair and his beard there. As well as that, we're also going to be painting up the little straps he has around his sword there too. So, as you can see, I'm coming in with a very, very fine tip brush so I can get that nice bit of moustache that's sculpted into his miniature there, as well as his little beard he's got. It's really well done with the sculpting on this model there. You can really see those details and actually pick them out. So that's why I'm coming in with this nice fine tip brush to get this. I recommend using a fine tip brush as well, since the details are so small sculpted in there. And of course with that too, we're also going to paint up his hair as well, so make sure you get that too while you're doing his facial hair at the same time. Then once we have his hair complete, what we're doing now is coming in with some gunmetal. And there's only one part that we're really going to be using gunmetal on, is that is of course the blade of the sword. So a nice easy thing to do here with metals. And we're just going over top, being careful we don't get it on anywhere that we don't want it to be, especially since this is the only place with the silver that we're using. Then once we've completed that, I'm going to come in with a different metallic here, and I'm going to be using brassy brass for this. And I'm just going to be using this for the belt buckle that he's wearing around his waist, and just for the edge of his sword. I just wanted to give it a little bit more colour variation in there. I think brassy brass is going to be a great colour for this. I didn't want it to stand out too flashy like gold. I don't think they have too much gold up in the north, so that's why I decided to go with a brass colour. And then with the sword complete, what we're going to be doing now is we're going to come in with some agrx earthshade. And this is going to be using for a majority part of the model here. Basically, we're going to be using this wash over the entirety of the model, except for the cloak and the sword, of course. I'm also going to be using this wash for his facial hair as well. I want to make it so he's, you know, he had brownish hair in the past and it's going white, so hopefully that'll give off the effect I'm going for with that. And it's just a matter of going around, being very careful to avoid the areas we don't want it, like on that sword, because I want to be doing that in a different wash, and making sure that it's not pooling in too many places. Then once we have that complete, what we're going to be doing now is coming on some seraphim sepia. And this is for one small part of the miniature, and that is for the wrapping that is around his sword there. So just a nice little touch of the seraphim sepia wash to get that in there. As well as that, I'm also going to be using it quickly just on the brass details as well to give that a little bit different shine colour. Then once that wash is completely dry, what we're going to be doing now is coming in with some nuln oil, which is going to be the last wash we use here. And this is for two places. We want to be using it over the fur cloak that he got from the Night's Watch, as well as the sword, of course. Now, hopefully with that basalt grey dry brushing in there, it's going to help separate it out, and we're just tying it back together with that nuln oil wash, keeping it that black colour, really deepening it down without making it look too grey, since we've got that basalt grey on there. I didn't want the effect of coming out like it's got super grey highlights, so that's why we're going with the black wash, to hopefully make it look like it's got black highlights instead. Then once we've done that, what we're going to do now is we're going to come in with some khaki once again, and we're going to be using this for, of course, some highlights on his trousers. So these nice sculpted in details of the folds in his trousers, so it's nice and easy to see where we want to have those highlights to be. As well as that, I'm also going to be doing it, of course, on the tip of his knee there. That's really poking out there in the sun. So good practice here for where you want your highlights to be, since it's nicely sculpted into those areas. So it's just a matter of picking out those areas and more using the side of your brush than the tip of the brush to get those nice areas picked out. Then once we have those highlights complete, time to come in with some more highlights, and this one's going to be leather brown to do this, and this is the highlights that we're going to be using on our boots. So as you can see, there's little straps and stuff that are around his boots and little bits of leather that are coming around. So like I said, we were going to help enhance this a little bit when it came to the highlighting step, and the leather brown coming into then picking out those little bits of tufts and areas that are poked out is really going to help with this and sell the effect that it's worn leather and he sort of wrapped it around together to make his boots. Then once we've got that complete, what we're going to be doing now is coming back in with our gunmetal here, and this is just to be doing a quick little highlight on his sword here, and it's just a matter of grabbing the edge of your blade as well as the edge of the actual brush itself, and really picking out those nice ridges in the middle of the blade. Really going along, being careful. As you can see, I'm really just skimming it along, really catching the edge of my brush so we can get that nice edge on the sword picked out. And then once we've done that, there's just one little final step to do, and that's to do the base. And since Craster here is just sitting obviously inside somewhere, and I don't really want him to have it like a winter base or anything on there. I want him to be sitting inside. I'm just going to go with a simple plain black base for this, and same with most of the Song of Ice and Fire miniatures I've been doing so far. It's just been all on basic black bases, so that's all I'm going to be doing here. And with all that complete, we have finally finished painting up Craster from the Song of Ice and Fire miniatures game. So I hope this video has been useful for you guys, whether you want to follow along or you just want to use this video for some inspiration in painting up your own miniatures. And with all that said guys, I'd like to thank you all for watching, and I can't wait to see you all in the next video.